Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror supernatural films from 2024, titled Tarot. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie begins with 7 college friends drinking around a bonfire in front of a large mansion. The group includes Haley, Grant, Paxton, Paige, Elise, Madeline, and Lucas. It turns out to be Elise's birthday, so they have rented the vintage mansion to celebrate and have fun. While playing a game, the group teases Haley and Grant, claiming that they will be the first to get married as they have been dating since ages. However, this creates a very awkward situation for both of them, so Grant retreats to the mansion. Haley then informs her friends that they have recently broken up. Upon hearing this, her shocked friends advise her to reconcile because they appear to be the perfect match. But Haley believes their relationship was headed in different directions. Shortly after, the rest of the group enters the mansion and looks for more beer, but they quickly discover that they have run out of alcohol. Because the mansion is in a remote location and it's too late, they realize they won't receive any deliveries. But they assume that there might be some alcohol hidden away in the old mansion, and begin snooping around. While their search turns up empty, they come across a locked door with a keep out sign on it. Drunk and celebrating, they decide to disregard the sign and break into the secret chamber. The door leads them down into a dark basement, where they discover numerous strange antiques. They suspect that whoever lived in the house was an astrology and occult relic collector. Moments later, Paxton finds an antique box, inside of which he discovers some tarot cards. Haley never sees the tarot cards this scary before, and realizes they are hand-painted. Since she has some knowledge of tarot and astrology, her friends urge her to do a reading for them. Haley is hesitant to use a stranger's deck of tarot cards, but Elise insists, claiming it's her birthday wish. Following this, they light candles around the place and gather for the tarot reading. Just before they begin, a strong gust of wind blows through, making Haley very nervous. She tells her friends that they shouldn't do this, as it's an unspoken rule to use someone else's deck, but Elise continues to insist until she finally agrees to do the reading. Moments later, Haley starts the reading with Elise. She explains that 12 tarot cards form a circle to represent each zodiac, with an important 13th card in the center, indicating the reading's overall theme. Haley tells Elise that, as a Libra, Elise is naturally curious, and seeks to make sense of things. Elise receives the High Priestess card, which indicates that she's climbing the ladder towards success, but Haley warns her not to rush, as she may slip and suffer a serious blow. After that, it is Madeline's turn, and she gets the Hanged Man card, which represents ultimate surrender. Haley informs her that, as a Pisces, she tends to run from danger. She advises Madeline not to run away from problems, and she may also find technology failing for no reason.
Don't panic. It'll soon be water under the bridge. Okay.
In the meantime, Paxton goes to the restroom in the dark, where he notices a door closing and opening due to the wind. Suddenly, he spots a figure on the balcony, but then he realizes it is just a pile of garbage. At the same time, Haley does Paige's reading, where she draws the Magician card. As a Virgo, Paige may find this month difficult, because she may feel like being pulled in 2 directions. Haley also warns that the magician's tricks are deceptive, and may prevent her from seeing clearly. Later, when it's Paxton's turn for the reading, he receives the Fool card. Haley explains that, as a Taurus, he is known as a reliable friend, though he can be kinda bullheaded, and make rash decisions. The Fool creepy clown card warns him not to act on impulse, and don't be surprised if he feels trapped or boxed in. When it is Lucas' turn, Haley informs him that, as a Capricorn, he is a rule breaker. He receives the Hermit card, and Haley reveals that his financial situation will change. Regardless, she warns him to be cautious, because the Hermit represents poor decisions, and the Hermit's light could lead him down the wrong track. After this, Haley tries to perform Grant's reading, with Leo as his sign. She then draws the Devil card, stating that it represents his darker side. This indicates that he is on a dark path, and will need to confront his demons and make a sacrifice, or he will lose someone important in his life. However, Grant believes she is making this up, and storms out of the room. Finally, Haley reads her own horoscope, and pulls the Death card. She claims that every time she conducts a reading for herself, she receives the same card, which states that love will be the cause of her death. The scene then cuts to midnight, when we see the tarot card box begin to glow, and some sort of ritual scene appears on the screen. The next morning, the group departs from the mansion, and returns to campus. Later, Lucas stops at a gas station, and he is thrilled when he wins $700 on a scratch card, and it makes the group extremely happy. That night, Elise and Haley are dropped off. The two besties hug each other before parting ways. Elise returns to her dorm and takes a shower. But when she steps out of the restroom, she is surprised to see a ladder leading to the attic. Elise doesn't think much of it, she simply raises the ladder, closes the attic door, and returns to her room. She then receives a call from Paige, and the two start talking. But this is when Elise begins hearing strange noises. She hangs up the phone, and she once again notices the ladder leading to the attic, while we see a dark figure behind her. Elise believes her friends are pulling a prank on her and calls out to them, but no one answers. After this, she climbs up the ladder and goes to the attic, but finds no one there. Seconds later, the lights in the hallway go out. Startled, Elise looks back at the attic and suddenly sees it filled with lit candles and upside-down crosses. She also notices the High Priestess card, right when the High Priestess appears in front of her, making her fall to the ground. She then receives a call from Paige and attempts to grab her phone. But unfortunately, the High Priestess repeatedly hits her with the ladder until she is eliminated. The following day, the group is devastated by the unexpected death of their friend who had just celebrated her birthday. Paige is very shaken and traumatized as she was the last one to talk to Elise, so Haley offers to stay with her. Later that night, Paige awakens from a nightmare, claiming that she keeps seeing Elise's face as if she were still alive. Hearing this, Haley begins to open up, revealing she lived only with her mother. One day, her mother suddenly fell ill, and Haley suffered greatly watching her try one treatment after another, but nothing worked. And that's when she got into tarot, and did so many readings for her mother, but they all predicted that she would die. This is when Haley realized she was unable to prevent her mother's death, so she believes that some events are destined and cannot be changed. In another scene, Lucas is walking alone through a subway station when the lights begin to flicker. He then comes across the figure of the hermit, who begins to chase him. A terrified Lucas runs for his life, and accidentally enters a restricted area. There, he sees a newspaper with his photo and the headline "You Die Today." Suddenly, the scary figure shows up, so Lucas anxiously hides in an abandoned train. Inside, the hermit scares him several times. Until this happens. The next day, his friends learn of the tragedy from the police, and are even more shaken. It is at this point that Haley realizes that their two friends' fates match the tarot reading predictions. It all begins with Lucas winning a scratch card, Elise's ladder incident, and Lucas accidentally breaking into a restricted area. She suspects it has something to do with the deck, and they start searching for similar incidents on the internet. After some digging, they keep coming across the name Alma Astrom. It turns out she's an expert in horoscope divination, and has seen similar situations before. The group attempts to contact her, but she is unavailable, so they decide to go directly to her home. After 3 hours of driving, they finally arrive at their destination. Alma's house is in the middle of nowhere, and when the group knocks, she refuses to speak with them. However, when Haley mentions that 2 of her friends have already died because of the tarot cards, Alma finally agrees to talk. Once inside, Haley describes in detail what happened and how her friends died. She also describes the deck, but Alma seems to already know about it. Alma then recounts a series of similar incidents. In 1951, 6 people died in Mexico City under mysterious circumstances in under 48 hours. One connection between the victims was that they all had their horoscopes read at a wedding. In 1969, a similar case occurred in Woodstock, where 8 people died in 3 days, all of whom had their horoscopes read. The next incident took place in London in 1988, when a group of friends went on a weekend trip and had their horoscopes read. Only one of them walked away alive, and it turns out that Alma was the sole survivor, because she did everyone else's reading except her own. Since then, she has been attempting to locate and destroy the deck. Plus, according to Alma's research, the deck belonged to a Hungarian astrologer in 1798. She worked for a count who practiced the occult and believed her every tarot prediction. The count and his wife were expecting their first child, but the astrologer predicted that neither the mother nor the child would survive childbirth. This upset the count, who demanded that she repeat the reading, but each time the outcome was the same. As a result, the enraged count banished both the astrologer and her daughter. But the reading eventually came true, and his wife and child died during childbirth. This infuriated the count, who accused the astrologer of witchcraft, and ordered his men to track her down. He then murdered the astrologer's daughter, leaving her devastated. In retaliation, the astrologer carried out a blood ritual. She sacrificed herself and bound her spirit to the cards, resulting in the death curse. As a result, the count and his associates were eventually murdered, and the astrologer exacted her revenge. Unfortunately, killing the count and his associates wasn't enough for the astrologer. Her soul remained bound to the deck, and anyone who received a reading from it would face the same terrible fate as the count. Alma then reveals that the only way to end the curse is to destroy the deck. Upon hearing this, the group decides to return to the mansion and get the job done. Here Madeline plays the video she recorded of Haley discussing her reading, which was about the hanged man. But then, after driving for a while, they reach a bridge where the car suddenly stops functioning. A fog suddenly appears on the window, and Madeline sees the image of the hangman. Realizing she's going to be next, she starts to panic and run away, despite her friends' attempts to stop her. They soon notice the hangman showing up with a rope. Haley attempts to warn her, but unfortunately, a noose is suddenly thrown around Madeline's neck. The hangman drags her up and murders her. Witnessing their friend's death, the group is horrified, and decides to go back to the mansion to destroy the deck. However, Paxton becomes terrified of these entities, and believes he is safe in his room. Haley pleads with him to stay, insisting that they must stay together, but the bull-headed Paxton makes a rash decision and leaves. Later, we see Paxton walking home alone when he hears someone laughing. But when he turns around, he notices no one. A terrified Paxton tries to run, but soon notices a creepy clown staring at him. He then rushes to his apartment, while the clown chases him, giggling maniacally. Paxton soon enters the elevator, hoping that the entity has departed. But it is here that he remembers his tarot reading about being boxed in. All of a sudden, when the door opens,
Another one opens.
On the other hand, the three friends finally arrive at the mansion, and attempt to destroy the tarot cards in the box. But to their shock, they notice that even fire cannot burn these cards. This leaves them with no choice, but to call Alma for help. Moments later, she arrives. Haley then tells her how they saw the hangman who murdered Madeline. Alma explains that because the astrologer has bound her spirit to the deck, she embodies the cards and brings the cards to life. Following this, Alma comes up with a plan to separate the astrologer's spirit from the cards. She begins a ritual, and soon, the astrologer's spirit appears directly behind them at the fireplace. However, the astrologer's spirit decides to have her own fun by reading Alma's card, which reveals the Six of Swords. Moments later, she pulls Alma into the darkness, and the three friends begin to flee, but soon come across Alma's lifeless body with 6 swords stabbed into her back. They continue forward, but Paige soon becomes separated from Grant and Haley. Shortly after, she hears Haley's voice in the basement, asking for help. She walks inside, but the door quickly slams shut behind her. Meanwhile, Haley and Grant rush into a room, and barricade the door with furniture as the spirit bangs on the door. Returning to the basement, Paige continues to hear Haley's voice, which soon turns demonic. The lamp suddenly bursts into her face, hurting her vision. Just then, the magician appears in front of her, and performs a few tricks. He also chains her feet in front of a ghostly audience. A terrified Paige crawls to hide in a box, but soon realizes she's trapped and cannot escape, while the magician drags the box in front of the crowd. Moments later, the magician brings a huge saw, and keeps stabbing the box with the saw. The panicked girl tries her best to avoid it, but sadly, she ends up being cut in half along with the box, which is then pulled in 2 directions. Haley and Grant hear her screams from the locked room, but can do nothing to help her. At this tense moment, Haley realizes that if the cards curse whoever has a reading done, she might be able to reverse it for the astrologer by doing her own reading. But then, while they're discussing this, Grant is suddenly pulled out of the window by the devil. A terrified Haley attempts to flee, but the death from her tarot card appears, and begins chasing her. The poor girl runs around the mansion, but the death eventually catches up to her. But just when she's about to be killed, Grant shows up and hits the entity with a rod. He then tells Haley to finish the reading while he deals with the entities. Following this, Haley arranges the cards and notices that they are all reversed, implying that the astrologer is in severe pain. Meanwhile, we see Grant being pulled by the entity. Haley then begins the reading, prompting the astrologer's spirit to attempt to stop her. Our brave heroine tries to engage her in conversation, saying she understands what it's like to have someone taken away from them. Staying stuck in the past won't change the future. Unfortunately, the enraged spirit is having none of it, and grabs Haley by her neck to finish her off. But just then, Haley lays out her card, which is also death, meaning her end has come. Seconds later, a black gust sweeps through the room, and the spirit begins screaming, before being pulled into the flames. Following this, we see her reunited with her daughter in the afterlife. As a result of this, the tarot cards can finally be destroyed, breaking the curse. In the aftermath, Haley and Grant walk down the main road. They soon notice a car approaching them, and suspect the horror isn't over yet. However, it turns out to be Paxton, who has managed to survive the ordeal. The 3 are very happy to see each other again. They get into the car, and head back to the city. On the way, Paxton explains that he managed to survive because his roommate opened the elevator door just in time, causing the fool to disappear. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.